Okay, people, so it's August 1st. As you can see, these are figs. I have 3 trays, right? Came from my neighbors. They said I could have them. There's still more growing, right? Left a few on the tree still. Gave them a little bit because I climb up high, right? Felt like I was 5 years old climbing a tree again today, people. And then my landlady, she wants a tray. She's the one who told me they asked her when do figs need to be picked. She said no. So I'm glad I asked her because they're ready. So I'm giving her 1 tray. So I have 2 trays anyway for myself for now. And I'm going to dehydrate them. Hold on a minute. Alright, so anyway, moving along. What I've done here, people, on the advice of my landlady, she says you cut them, you dehydrate them, and then you put them in the freezer after, right? And they can last up to 3 years. Obviously, I'm going to try and vacuum seal pack my packages when I'm ready to freeze them. So I didn't expect to get figs. And I have a bit to try and make a jam, so I think I'm going to do that too. And this tree will continue to produce for probably another month anyway. Anyway, I don't know anything about figs. I'm just learning now. So Andre and I, we got that yesterday, you can see. And then we got those ones. I still haven't done these ones and those ones. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to start making juice first to make it easy on myself. Hold on. Okay, so this is how I'm going to approach this problem. Tisha, my youngest daughter, right? She's getting all stressed out. Oh, well, you know, you're bringing in apples, and now you're bringing in figs, and you're still doing walnuts, and so anyway, I told her not to panic. Those 2 bags came from yesterday, and I'll probably get another 3 or 4 more bags just like that, and then the tree will be empty. And then over here is what I showed you with the last video. So it's full, right? So I'm going to do this one first. This is how I'm going to tackle this problem. And I'm just going to make juice with this batch first. Ugh, my hands are wet, people, and the camera is acting up. Hold on. Anyway, it is what it is. I don't even think that that's recording correctly. I see a hue in there. As I was saying, and then after I've got these cooking, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to empty those other apples into a container, and I'm going to take out the more bruised ones for the next batch of apple juice, right? And then the ones that aren't bruised, like this one, say for example, I'm going to leave in the container, and then I'm going to put them in my, I guess, my little cold room, or at least outside in the shade covered up, because technically I should be getting into them tomorrow, but we'll see how that goes, right? Only so much, because now that I've got these figs, people, I'm going to try and make some fig jam. Okay, so anyway, it's the next day, so I did the apples, right, last night, that one you can see, and then now I'm going to put it in the crock pot on low, and we're going to start making apple butter and put a little bit of sugar in there after, you know, not that much, maybe half a cup or something. And then we're going to can it. And I've got cucumbers that I bought the other day that I need to can, so I'll probably try and do that tonight. This will be, I'm going to do them in, what do you call them? Half pint size. Good for like just to make cinnamon bun with the apple spread in it or something. Hold on. Anyway, moving along. So this here is the juice, right? Now here's the problem. When I started these apples, I had, first of all, too much water in here. And then I did the 1 sink full, right? Lots went into the compost, so I'm happy with that, people, trust me. And then it only had 1 tray instead of 2 trays of apples. So the juice itself, what I'm trying to say, isn't as tasty as it should be. So this is how I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to take this, I'm going to put this in the fridge, and then just went and got another bag that fell off the tree today. So anyway, I'm going to sort out the other ones. You'll see, I'll show you. And then I'm going to get another 2 stacks, or at least 1 stack, because I'm tired, because I've got other things to do here, people. Get that cooking in this juice to richen this up, right? And then after that's rich, put it in a different container, put it in the fridge, and then do another batch with this one, right? In terms of, instead of using water for the next batch, I'll use this, and then start the process. Oh, sorry people, hold on. Anyway, this camera so needs to be retired. And then as you can see, this is what's happening with these, what is it called? Figs. So now, I'm going to break them up, right? You can see, because they're still a little sticky. I'm going to continue to dehydrate them, and then once they're dehydrated, I'm going to freeze them. But I like to vacuum seal the things that I freeze, so I'm going to try and vacuum seal these before I freeze them, right? And then they can they can stay up to 3 years frozen, but because it's vacuum sealed, it will probably extend the life of the fig if you weren't to use it. So anyway, I'll be back, hold on. Okay, so those are the 2 bags I was talking about. Andre and I were throwing sticks up in the tree, building memories. Right? And this is what fell off the tree today on their own. This is what I picked up off the ground. And there's still lots of apples. This is what we got in terms of walnuts today. And it hasn't even started dropping. And I still have to do those, so hold on a minute. Okay, people, anyway, this is what I'm doing. So it's not like I can really see when the camera starts flashing here, right? I mean, eventually this camera will be retired, and eventually I'll get another one, but it's not on the top of the priority list, right? So I just want to say is, as I'm going through this food, you know, like, the house is like, you know, I'm not telling my kids, right? Well, it doesn't feel the same, people, as I'm losing my children one by one, right? You know, it's hard to say kids now because I don't have a lot of kids anymore, right? That I can, I don't know if you want to say rely on, or like, you know, my daughter, my Sierra, my oldest daughter, I don't consider like I have a daughter with her, right? Because of her mental health issues and just the stress that she puts me under all the time, right? Because she has no one else to turn to, and I'm like maxed out with my own issues. There you go. Oh, I don't want to hit this camera. There. It's teetering on a bowl. It's on my dish rack, right? But I have to. I got a bowl full of. I'm trying to pick these things in priority. Like, okay, this is my day. I don't think I'll get it all done today, but I have cucumbers that I bought about 4 or 5 days ago that were just right for making some pickles. And because my kids like pickles, you know, I mean, having a few extra jars around is probably a good idea. My son, my youngest son, my middle son, right? My middle child. Right, my youngest son, he was asking for pickles yesterday. He asked me if he could have this one, and I said, but I just can't. But I said, I just canned it, so, you know, let me get into the other stuff, right, which is like down there, right? And once I start getting into these bigger jars of pickles, because my cucumbers are blooming all over the place, so they're going to be coming real soon. You know, I'm just making an extra batch here and an extra batch there because, again, I plan on taking, you know, I want to give my son his own little stash, I guess you could say, downstairs, right? Now, whether he shares it with his roommate down there, Edgar, you know, Edgar can try it every now and then, you know, whether Tisha uses it. You know, if Shimei was around, Shimei loved pickles. Shimei was actually starting to learn how to make pickles with me. You know, because I'm asking Tisha, she's getting frustrated. She's getting all, oh, you know, can't move, oh, he's crowded in the kitchen. And I'm like, well, yeah. You know, it's summertime. The only time I have any real free time for anything is in the middle of winter. And even then, in the middle of winter, what am I working on? Paperwork. You know, spring, summer, and fall. It's anything related to yard, whether it's yard work, getting the ground ready, planting the food, growing the food, and then harvesting the food, right? And lucky me, I got, you know, those figs yesterday. I wasn't planning on that. Wasn't anything I was planning on, but, you know, so I have to fit that in. So, you know, you get all panicky yourself because you've got apples to can, you know, you have to make juice, you have to peel them, or you gotta, these ones, I'm gonna, just because I'm pressured for time, in terms of I have a lot of other things on the go here, for food-wise, the simplest for me is to make the juice, which everyone likes anyway, right? And make the apple butter, which that last little bit there, I just put in the fridge in the crock pot. So after these ones are done, once the crock pot is fairly full, that's when I'll start cooking them and getting them ready for canning, right? But for now, I'm just, you know, gathering it up because I'm going to try and get most of these apples that I have here, except for maybe what I found today on the ground, done. And then in the next day or two, I'll be canning the apple butter and the apple juice. But right now, as I'm making it, it can go in the fridge and then, you know, pile it up. Like another jar of apple juice, another thing of apple butter. Do that 2 or 3 times, and then you have enough to start canning jars with, right? As I'm, like, after these apples are done, I'm a little stressed out with it, people, right? But, you know, I'm up for the challenge. That's the thing about canning. You either gonna do it or you're not. In the old days, people didn't have a choice, right? They had to if they wanted to survive. So families worked together. That's the thing. Families did this together, and that was the only way they could eat, right? Nowadays, people just go to the grocery store or to, you know, a restaurant or a fast food drive-through or something just to, you know, to eat, right? So that's why I tend to do it all by myself because, well, one, my son works. You know, he works pretty hard, so he doesn't really want to come home and start canning. But if he ever wanted to, I'm sure he would be capable of doing it if he really wanted to. I mean, obviously, he's got a mother that does it, right? And I'm now going a little bit out of my way to, like I said, you know, try and build up his personal stash now, right? So that he has access to the pineapple and the beets and that type of thing. He took a jar of beets downstairs last night, so that was good, right? And see, nothing wrong with that little apple. In terms of cutting them and putting them into jars, I still want to do that, but I'm going to wait until after I move everything in terms of branches from the tree, and then I'm going to climb up in the tree and I'm going to shake the tree, right? And then all the apples will come falling down. And then those apples, because I find that these are really soft apples. And right now I'm just pressed for time. You know, I'm pressed for time. One, I don't want them to spoil any more than where their bruise is. Right? You just cut it off, right? And apple juice is great to have. This is organic. To buy a bag of organic apples, you're looking at $7 just for a little teeny weeny bag of apples. And I've got like hundreds of bags of apples here at that price, right? So, you know, just for the kids, the apple juice is good. And then the apple butter, you know, I mean, you can use it for lots of things when you're ready to use it. Otherwise, it can just stay in a can and ain't going to go nowhere. You know, if an emergency ever happens, you know, trust me, there will be people at my door, you know, wanting to come in and eat. And because I do food storage, I'll be able to help at least some of them, right? So that's always the backup plan. And then I still have these figs to do. So the plan for today is obviously apples first. So that's what I'm working on right now. Get that going so I can get that burner off the stove in terms of pot, right? After these are cooked. And then after these are cooked and I got everything put away, then I'm going to probably get into those cucumbers downstairs because I don't want them to go to waste, right? And they should still be fine. Because the bag, I left it open a bit so they can breathe, right? They shouldn't be sweating in there. As long as they're not sweating, they'll be fine. And then do another batch of pickles, only because my kids like them, you know. And some batches I make really hot, with like those little red chili peppers and stuff. And, you know, I change the brines on them sometimes, and you know, I experiment. I'm not very good at keeping track of what's what. Kind of like when, well, we know there's beans growing in that patch. We're not too sure what kind of beans, but we just know there's a bunch of beans. There's some cucumbers over there and something else growing in there. I guess we have to just wait and see what comes out, right, after it's finished blooming. it's just because I don't have time to write everything down and keep track of every single thing that I do when it comes to food. So, anyway, I'm working on that little system, right? And then, so pickles probably, well, it will be a toss-up between the figs and the pickles, right? I mean, in my mind, I'm superhuman. I can do it all night long. And don't forget, I'm supposed to be doing paperwork too, people. Not only am I supposed to be doing paperwork for CIBC Bank, I'm supposed to be doing paperwork for Fraser Health Authority and send that off you know where. And then, you know, I got to finish up with the nonprofit books for this little house, which is, I don't know. I don't want to get into it too much right now. Outside say that we're coming into the tail end of everything, and you know, there. Oh yes, I did want to say this before I go, because I really got to focus on this, right? I was told that since they opened up all these little portables for housing, temporary housing, so that they could clear out the tents off the streets, right? There has been a, check this out, people. There has been, and I'm going to take a video camera, and I'm going to go out there, and I'm going to talk to the people with my Marax hat, right? But, you know, we have to go with, you know, you see that, right? We don't want it to get worse, so I kind of have to get on it, right? That's the thing about this stuff there, right? And then you just take out a little more before you know it's fine. There has been 11 deaths in these little portables from people being by themselves, supposedly doing drugs because of the fentanyl. It's not the heroin that... Okay, anyway, this thing is like getting worse, right? And if you notice, I didn't get mad. I tell myself, don't get mad, right? That's how I get through life. Don't get mad. You know, there's worse things in life than you could be doing than what do you call, peeling apples to make apple juice and apple butter, right? Except for a funky camera, right? Anyway, let's get back onto the serious subject of people dying here. So it's not the heroin, people, that's killing people. It's not the freaking cocaine and this misconception that's out in society that, oh, they did it to themselves, they were doing drugs, they were by themselves, or whatever, right? It's just a bunch of crock. Okay, sure, these are people maybe sitting up in a portable and they're not feeling very well and they're addicted to drugs and they don't know how to fix their lives or whatever, and they take a chance on their own by themselves and they're, you know, little... I don't know what the square footage of it is. I heard they're actually pretty nice, but it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like it's working. If you got 11 people dying in the last month and a half in these little single one-person units, right? And then I don't know if it was 20 or 40 overdoses since these things opened up, and it's only been like a month and a half. That's like a serious fucking problem. Okay? That is not a success story. Because there's no one there, there's no one there to help them. Right? This is the thing about Shmei. Shmei was by herself. Thing is, there was no paraphernalia around Shmei. There was nothing. Nothing, no baggies, nothing, no straws, you know, nothing to indicate that she had been doing any kind of drugs in the living room or anywhere else in that house for that matter. Okay? It was no cocaine that killed her. This is what the hospital tried to tell me. It was cocaine. What the fuck? Cocaine doesn't go around killing people. You have to be doing cocaine a long time before cocaine would ever kill anybody. Okay? Otherwise, we would have heard about it fucking years ago when there was a fucking crack epidemic and all that. People do stupid things when they're on drugs. That's what killed them, not because they were smoking cocaine. Okay? Unless, of course, they were smoking and smoked themselves to death, and they had smoked so much that they just... But most people don't do that, right? So, like, you know, this what I'm trying to say is you can't fall for the old okie dokie. Because what they did with these portables, sure, I'm hearing that, and I want to be unbiased about it, that for some people it's working out pretty good, right? Okay, granted, but for other people it's not working out. It's, you know, it's like a death camp. You know, they've been moved into these single room portables that, you know, isolate them, right, to where they're gonna do things regardless. And because they're not allowed to have anybody with them, they're gonna take the risk anyway, and they're dying. And this is where it benefits the government, because now they don't have to pay, you know, rent. They don't have to worry about the medical expenses. They don't have to worry about anything. Those people are gone. They don't have to worry about feeding them and worrying about housing them or nothing. Nothing. So that's why Shimei fits with that format. Oh, she did it to herself. She's like everybody else out there that's doing it to themselves. No, first of all, Shimei was not like everybody else. And just because what happened to Shimei doesn't make it okay for somebody else to have it happen to them, regardless of what the fuck is going on out there with these people in terms of their personal addictions and that type of thing. Right? But the political winds have merged everything together to victimize the victim, to criminalize the victim, right? And then as they do it, they bring in their programs, and because you're dealing with a political body, whether it's a municipality, a province, or a freaking country in terms of federal government, I don't know how involved the federal government is with these portables. Personally, I think it's just something that started in from the United States, because the person who runs these portables apparently is somehow connected to the United States with the FEMA camps down there. Right? So when people are out here saying, and you can tell I'm getting riled up with it, right? When people, you know, before those things even opened up, a lot of people were calling them that, including myself. It's just another, they're bringing in a form of FEMA camp. You know, in the States they call them the death camps. Well, yeah, because once people get in there, look what happens. They start dying. They're dying here. And the thing is, the news is not reporting it. It's not being reported, people. The media. Right, is the local newspaper. You don't even get your local newspaper out here half the time, because they can't find nobody to deliver them. So even if it was in the newspaper, you wouldn't get the newspaper because it's not being delivered to your house anymore. Right, it's sporadic, comes and goes. You don't know. Right, most people don't watch TV with their local news now to see what's going on in the neighborhood, and chances of them reporting that are almost nil to none anyway, because it's every city's dirty secret. Right? Just like the healthcare system has their dirty secrets. You know? It's just a different, what do you call that? Department. That's it. That's all it is. So, you know, I'm going to go out there and do a video. Somebody has to help me with that, because I can't do it by myself in terms of holding the camera. Maybe I'll try Mark Kane's camera that day. I don't know. Do a video, come home, try to upload, and it won't work. So I might end up just using this one. You know, be grateful for what you do have and not what you don't have. You know, like seriously, man. You know, you got small kids in the house or whatever. You got adult children. Yes, you're losing your children one by one for whatever reason. You know, but I still have kids. I still have grandkids. So for me, economically, this makes sense. Not only is it 100% organic, it's free. And it costs pennies on the dollar, people, pennies, for me to can this stuff. It's just a matter of doing it and not getting all stressed out, mad, and then shutting down, because I'm having to do it by myself, because my kids, you know, live in a modern society where this stuff isn't valued like it used to be. Hold on. Anyway. I'm starting to look old, eh? As I was saying, which I can't really remember now, other than I was talking about this dire situation with these people being in vulnerable positions where they're not allowed to have anybody in their cubicle, and because of that, they are doing it to themselves, people, in terms of overdosing, because they don't want to go out into some area where, I don't know, I have to go and, you know, like, what is provoking these people from doing this, knowing that they're taking a risk, right? Other than they feel they have no choice, right? So in terms of a social science experiment, you know, when they're saying people are dying in these dubbed FEMA camps, there's truth to it. There's truth to it. It's just not being reported, right? And as that's happening, the establishments, because it's more than one, it's union driven, right? This is all done by government employees for the most part. I mean, obviously some private sectors are involved, but for the most part it's being driven by the union, right? You know, they're you know, I'm not saying it's happening here in Surrey, but in other places, you know, whatever, they're funneling taxpayers' dollars into these types of projects that bring people into central locations where they are being, you know, dubbed as doing it to themselves, even though they know, the establishment knows that they're putting these people at risk and that there's a high probability that they're going to try and do something. That they're going to try and do something by themselves, right? If they're going to do what they're going to do. It's not like they can go out into the kitchen area and do it, the common kitchen area, right? Because they've got them so under lockdown that they're kind of forcing them to do it by themselves. And because they did it to them and because they died while being by themselves, that somehow makes it okay for Shimei to die by herself. And she did it to herself. And you see, Shimei is the myth breaker. She's breaking the myth. She's bringing in the facts. Because how do we know that some of these people in these portables are not being hot-capped in their people, just like Shimei was hot-capped in her own house? Okay. So I'm going to have to go out there and do a video on this. In terms of the little house and what's going on over there, well, it's still a mutiny. But, you know, the captain, the landlord, you know, he's not going to take too much guff. And, you know, I still got the key. So that's what I remind these people. Like, whatever you're thinking after you're gone, I'm still going to have the key, right? So, I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see, right? Because I don't want a bad experience that I had with this little house with these bullies to distract away from what I work on in terms of the nonprofit, and not try it again. Like, get back up on the horse and try and get house number 2 at some point in the future. Obviously, I'm not going to do that right now. You know, I'm kind of busy with other things, and you know, I need to make sure that people understand that it's not going to be another fucking mutiny right? Before I go into that situation. But you know, you're either the type of person that wants to help people or you're not, right? And if you are, you know, at some point it all comes back up to the surface. Even if you try and convince yourself, oh no this and oh no that, at the end of the day, you know, people deserve to be treated with, you know, a certain amount of respect, right? We live in a rich country. We didn't have this problem years ago, right? Nobody asked for these drugs to come into the community. Nobody asked for all this money laundering with the fentanyl and all this to buy all these properties to make it so that nobody can even afford to rent a place anymore, and they don't have a choice but to go into an environment where they're, you know, they're going to be at risk to either one, doing it to themselves, or you know, being hot-capped and murdered, and then everybody's in denial because everybody else is doing it to themselves. So I'm going to do a follow-up video on that. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to talk to the actual people out there that live there. Like I said, I've heard some good things about it, and then obviously today I'm not hearing very good things about it, right? If you've got 11 people dying in the last month and a half with 20 to 40 freaking overdoses in these little portables, then obviously it's not working. And if people are going into these FEMA camps down there in the United States of America and not coming out, and nobody's reporting on it, well, we're starting to see now why. Because nobody's reporting on it out here. Because it's a form of culling of the population. By losing 11 people in the last month and a half, the provincial government saves itself hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to look after these people, as it was elected to do. All right? Instead of selling off the province to people that come in from backward countries that don't even know how to look after their own people in their own countries, but yet they come over here and they start treating the people that were born in this country in the same kind of manner that they treat their own people in their own country. Well, our politicians are taking in the kickbacks on that, people, and pocketing it for themselves. Anyway, people, here I'm going to end it on this. As you can see, these are those figs. So this is 4 pounds of figs just in this little bag here, right? Okay, move. And then I'm going to put them in the pot, put the lid on to keep the fruit flies out, right? And then we've got a few more here, right? Some of them, they're maybe not as ripe as they should be, but most of them are. This is pretty soft, right? Same thing in here. So anyway, I'm going to make jam. Aren't these just the cutest little mason jars you've ever seen? So I've got even some smaller ones too. So I am going to mix match the jars and make a specialty jam. So I'm going to end it on this note, people. Hold on a minute. Anyway, as I was saying prior to this last bit, there are people dying in these portables. It's not being reported. Obviously, the general consensus is they're doing it to themselves. They're taking risks by putting themselves in a single room occupancy portable where they're not allowed to have anybody come in. And if, you know, enter at your own risk kind of thing. If you're going to end up doing drugs because they're an addict, which the majority of the people, I'm not going to say all of them, but the majority of the people living in these portables are. Okay? And if there's nowhere else for them to use, they're going to use them in these portables by themselves. 11 deaths in the last, what, month and a half. 20 to 40 overdoses. I think it was either 20 or 40. Either or. I think it was 40. The numbers in terms of overdoses has been really high, and 11 deaths in a month and a half, and it's not being reported. And again, you know, they did it to themselves, like Shimei. She did it to herself in the basement, all by herself, right? You know what I mean? Like, there's just a bunch of bullshit going on out here in fucking Surrey, and even across the freaking continent, because that's the general consensus through and through, and it's being perpetrated. Oh, anyway, people, it's being perpetrated by the unions. Okay, it's the unions that's putting it out there. It is these people that are doing it to themselves. They're feeding that to the public. Okay.